We
The
need to
radio
secure the
hissed with
northern ridge
static
by
as
sunrise.
Alexandra.
Yes, sir.
Alex Morgan
The Alpha
pressed
team is
herself
in
against the
position.
blood-stained granite of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Her HK-416 rifle lay empty beside her, the last round expended hours earlier. The cold California wind whipped across her face, carrying away the warmth along with her hope of extraction. Operative down, no vital signs at coordinates. Presumed KIA, age 29. The calm, clinical voice of her commander crackled through her Motorola AN-PRC 148 MBTR tactical radio. Morgan's mission status terminated. Alex listened to her own obituary being broadcast while the distant shouts of the Patriots' Vengeance militia echoed through the valley below. They were celebrating her death, convinced they had eliminated the Navy SEAL infiltrator who had been tracking their movements for the past 18 days. The bullet wound in her shoulder pulsed with each heartbeat, a brutal reminder that she was very much alive, despite what her command believed. What the militia didn't realize, what even her own command couldn't know, was that Alexandra Morgan had endured far worse than a hillside ambush and a 30-foot plunge into a rocky ravine. As one of only 7 women ever to complete SEAL training, she had been pushed beyond human limits, broken down and rebuilt into something extraordinary. They assumed abandoning her would end the mission. In truth, it only severed the last restraint binding her to orders about avoiding unnecessary contact and keeping casualties low. Now, with her supposed death giving her perfect cover, she was about to turn their celebration into the last mistake they would ever make. "If they think I'm dead," she whispered to herself, applying pressure to her wound, "then it's time to become a ghost." 3 years earlier, at the Naval Special Warfare Training Center in Coronado, Alex had stood before retired Colonel William Wild Bill Cooper, her face still dripping from the infamous surf torture phase of Budus training. While the other instructors dismissed her as another woman trying to prove something in a man's world, the 72-year-old Cooper had seen something different. "You know why most candidates fail, Morgan?" Cooper had asked, his weathered face creased by decades of sun and combat. "They quit, sir," she had replied, shivering violently. "Wrong," Cooper said, leaning close. "They fail because they never learn that death isn't the worst outcome. Failure is." He pointed toward the Pacific Ocean where the next evolution would take place. "Out there, when your body says you're dying, that's when the real test begins." Cooper had served in Vietnam, then later ran clandestine operations during the Cold War that remained classified even 40 years later. He saw in Alex what few others did, not just determination, but an adaptability that couldn't be taught. "The finest operators I ever knew," he told her privately, "were the ones who could turn disadvantage into advantage. The ones who, when left with nothing, could still complete the mission." Despite his wisdom, Cooper maintained his doubts about women in combat roles, a fact he never bothered hiding from Alex. "It's not about strength or courage," he'd told her. "It's about whether the enemy perceives you as a threat. Sometimes being underestimated is an advantage, but not when your team's lives depend on intimidation." Alex had simply replied, "Then I'll have to be twice as lethal, sir." Cooper's unconventional mentorship extended beyond standard SEAL training. He taught her obscure pressure point combat techniques from his time with Montagnard fighters in Vietnam, survival methods developed during classified Arctic operations, and communication systems from the Cold War that modern operators had forgotten. She never understood why he took such interest in her training until later, when it saved her life. The mission had seemed straightforward 3 weeks earlier in the Pentagon briefing room. A domestic terrorist group calling themselves Patriots' Vengeance had established a training compound in the remote Sierra Nevada mountains. Intelligence suggested they were planning attacks on government facilities. Alex's assignment was to observe, gather intelligence, and report back, all without being detected. What no one knew then, not even Wild Bill Cooper, who had recommended Alex for the mission, was that the group's leader was former Special Forces Colonel Victor Renner, a decorated soldier whose military career had ended in disgrace after publicly denouncing civilian leadership. More importantly, Renner and Cooper had served together in a classified operation in Afghanistan in 1989, when the Cold War was ending and a new era of threats was emerging. For 18 days, Alex moved through the wilderness surrounding the compound, cataloging personnel, weapons, and patterns. Her ghillie suit blended perfectly with the terrain as she documented the militia's capabilities, which far exceeded initial intelligence estimates. They weren't just disgruntled veterans with rifles. They had military-grade weapons, tactical communications, and a level of discipline that spoke to professional training. On the 18th day, while observing a new shipment of what appeared to be explosives, Alex noticed an alarming shift in activity. Dozens of fighters were preparing weapons, studying maps of major cities and loading vehicles. The timeline had accelerated. That night, using her long-range surveillance equipment, she captured images of documents revealing the true scope of their plans. Coordinated attacks on Veterans Day, targeting memorial services across the country where military leadership would be present. It wasn't just a terrorist attack, it was a decapitation strike against America's military command structure. As she transmitted the encrypted images back to command, a voice from behind said, "I thought you looked familiar from selection." Alex turned to find herself facing a former ranger who had washed out of SEAL training years before. Before she could reach her sidearm, he fired, the bullet tearing through her shoulder. The silence of the night shattered as Alex rolled away, drawing her Sig Sauer and eliminating the immediate threat. But the damage was done. The compound erupted with activity as search parties deployed to hunt down the infiltrator. For 7 hours, Alex engaged in a fighting retreat through mountain terrain, employing every evasion tactic in the SEAL playbook. Her radio communications with command became increasingly desperate. Nighthawk 6, this is Spectre. Cover blown, requesting immediate extraction. Spectre, this is Nighthawk 6. Extract delayed due to atmospheric conditions. Hold position. Negative, Nighthawk. I am engaged with multiple hostiles. Need alternate extraction point. Spectre, maintain current position. Air assets grounded for minimum 6 hours. As dawn broke, Alex found herself surrounded, her ammunition nearly depleted. In a last desperate move, she fought through to a ridgeline, only to be hit again. The impact sent her tumbling down a steep ravine, her body bouncing off jagged rocks before coming to rest in a narrow crevice 30 feet below. Above her, Captain James Rivers, her direct commander, arrived with the quick reaction force just in time to witness her fall. After a cursory search revealed blood trails ending at a sheer drop, Rivers made the call that would change everything. Operative down, confirmed visual on terminal fall, no life signs possible. Morgan KIA. In that moment, Alexandra Morgan ceased to exist in the official record. The mission was classified as a failure, the intelligence deemed incomplete. But in the shadowy crevice below, Alex awoke hours later, wounded but resolute. Her tactical watch showed the date, November 9th. The attacks were scheduled for November 11th. She had 48 hours to stop a nationwide terror attack, with no backup, no ammunition, and injuries that would have hospitalized most soldiers. For anyone else, it would have been impossible. For Alex Morgan, it was simply the next evolution. By nightfall, Alex had established a rudimentary shelter in a small cave, using her emergency medical kit to address her wounds. The bullet had passed clean through her shoulder, missing major arteries but causing significant blood loss. Using dental floss from her survival kit, she stitched the entry and exit wounds, sterilizing the makeshift sutures with whiskey from her flask. A gift from Cooper on her SEAL qualification day. Her training kicked in automatically. Assess, adapt, overcome. She inventoried her remaining resources: a KA-bar combat knife, emergency transmitter, field dressings, fire starter, water purification tablets, in a high-calorie protein bar. Not enough to survive long, but sufficient for what needed to be done. From her hidden position, she observed the Patriots' vengeance compound through her compact M22 binoculars. The activity had intensified, vehicles being loaded, weapons distributed, and communications equipment being tested. What she saw next froze her blood. Captain James Rivers, her commanding officer, walking freely among the terrorists, engaged in animated conversation with Renner himself. "Son of a bitch," she whispered, the betrayal cutting deeper than her physical wounds. Rivers wasn't just passing information, he was actively coordinating with Renner, pointing at maps and satellite images that could only have come from military intelligence. But as she continued watching, the interaction grew tense. Rivers' body language shifted, becoming defensive. Renner appeared to be issuing orders, not accepting suggestions. The dynamic wasn't one of equal partners, but of commander and subordinate, or perhaps handler and asset. Alex's mind raced through possibilities. Was Rivers a willing traitor, or was there something more complex at play? Regardless, she couldn't count on any support from official channels. With Rivers compromised, any communication with command would likely be intercepted. There was one person she might still reach, someone outside the official chain of command. Using a frequency she and Cooper had established during training, Alex activated her emergency transmitter and sent a brief burst transmission in Morse code. "Ghost alive. River flows wrong way. Patriots, day -2. Within an hour, her transmitter crackled with Cooper's voice, so low she could barely hear it. "Christ, kid, you're supposed to be dead." "Officially, I am," she replied. "Rivers reported your body unrecoverable. Entire operation shut down." "Rivers is with them, Bill. I've got visual confirmation." A long pause followed. "You sure about that? Rivers has a spotless record." "I'm watching him exchange intel with Victor Renner as we speak." Another pause, longer this time. When Cooper spoke again, his voice had changed, hardened with recognition. "Renner? Victor Renner is running Patriots' Vengeance? You know him. Afghanistan, 89. Operation Nightshade. Classified Joint CIA Special Forces mission." Cooper's voice grew distant, as if recalling ghosts. "Renner was brilliant, ruthless. After the Soviets shot down his helicopter, we assumed he died. 3 months later, he walked into our forward base, having eliminated an entire enemy network. The agency was impressed enough to bring him into their fold." "So he's CIA?" Alex asked, confusion mingling with pain as she shifted position. "Was. After 9/11, he pushed for operations the oversight committees wouldn't approve. Too extreme, too many civilian casualties. He resigned rather than compromise his approach." "And Rivers," Cooper sighed. "Could be Renner recruited him. Or what? Or he's undercover, deep cover CIA, placed to monitor Renner years ago." Alex processed this, watching through her binoculars as Rivers and Renner examined what appeared to be detonator components. Either way, they're planning multiple strikes on Veterans Day ceremonies, high-value military targets across the country. "Can you transmit the intelligence?" "Negative. My secure uplink was in gear I had to abandon. Rivers would intercept anything on standard channels." Cooper was silent for a moment. "What's your status, physically?" "Shoulder wound, through and through. Significant blood loss. Multiple contusions. Maybe a concussion, but I'm mobile." "Extraction options?" "None that I can see. Compound is on high alert, all roads monitored. Even if I could reach a position for helicopter extraction, Rivers would scramble interceptors." The line went silent except for static. Finally, Cooper's voice returned, lower and more determined. "Alex, there's a protocol, something from the Cold War, never officially acknowledged. When an operative is declared dead but remains operational, they enter ghost status. Meaning? Meaning you're off the books. No support, No extraction, no official recognition, but also no rules of engagement, no political constraints. You become the ultimate deniable asset. Alex watched as a truck loaded with what appeared to be ammonium nitrate fertilizer, the main component in improvised explosives, departed the compound. Bill, they're distributing materials now. Whatever I do, it has to happen tonight. Then you go in as a ghost, complete the mission at all costs. His voice cracked slightly. And Morgan, there's something else you should know. My name is on their target list for the Veterans Day ceremony at Arlington. Renner always was thorough. Alex tightened her makeshift bandage. I'll see you at Arlington then. How? Even if you stop them, you're still officially KIA. Alex allowed herself a grim smile. I'll figure something out. Ghosts can be pretty resourceful. As darkness fell over the Sierra Nevada mountains, Alex Morgan prepared for what military strategists would call a low-probability mission. Outnumbered at least 30 to 1, severely wounded, with minimal equipment, she was about to assault a fortified compound of trained fighters. The old military adage, 2 is 1, 1 is none, echoed in her mind, a reminder that without backup, she had no margin for error. But she also recalled Cooper's unorthodox training. When conventional tactics fail, change the rules of engagement. Using mud from a nearby stream, Alex darkened her face and hands. She removed her remaining tactical gear, keeping only essentials that wouldn't reflect light or make noise. The night vision goggles she'd salvaged gave her a critical advantage in the darkness. Her plan was simple in concept, nearly impossible in execution. Infiltrate the compound, locate the communications hub, gather final intelligence on attack coordinates, sabotage their vehicles and weapons, and eliminate leadership if possible. All before dawn, all without being detected until it was too late. Alex approached from the northeastern perimeter, where she'd previously noted a blind spot in their security cameras. The perimeter fence, topped with razor wire, presented the first challenge. Using her KA-bar knife and insulated rubber from her boot soles, she created a gap just wide enough to squeeze through, the effort reopening her shoulder wound. Inside the compound, Alex moved like a shadow, using buildings and equipment for cover. The first sentry she encountered fell silently, a precise pressure point technique rendering him unconscious before he could raise an alarm. She secured his radio and sidearm, a Glock 19 with a full magazine. The communications hub occupied a converted shipping container near the center of the compound. 2 guards patrolled outside, maintaining overlapping fields of view. Alex observed their pattern for 10 minutes before identifying a 3-second window when both men's attention diverted to passing vehicles. She took advantage of that window, moving with preternatural silence to a position behind the container. Using a technique Cooper had taught her, the ghost knock, she tapped the metal wall in a pattern that mimicked internal equipment vibration. When one guard approached to investigate, she struck, using the newly acquired sidearm as a blunt instrument rather than risking a gunshot. The second guard turned just in time to meet the same fate, his body carefully positioned to appear as if still on watch from a distance. Inside the communications hub, Alex discovered detailed plans confirming her worst fears. Veterans Day attacks were scheduled for 11 a.m. Eastern Time at Arlington National Cemetery, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and 5 other high-profile locations across the country. The target list included 4 generals, 2 admirals, the Secretary of Defense, and dozens of other military leaders, including Colonel William Cooper, whose name was circled in red. Most disturbing was a schematic for a classified Pentagon security system, information that could only have come from someone with top-secret clearance. Whether Rivers was the source or another high-placed traitor existed remained unclear. Alex methodically photographed everything using a microfilm camera Cooper had given her. Cold War tech, he'd called it, unhackable because it's analog. She then placed small incendiary devices in the server racks, set to activate remotely. As she prepared to exit, voices approached. Alex concealed herself behind communications equipment as the door swung open. Victor Renner entered, followed by Rivers. The teams are in position nationwide, Rivers was saying. Final checks complete on all devices. Renner nodded, his face illuminated by monitor screens. At 62, he remained imposing. 6'3" with military bearing, undiminished by age. And the Arlington team? In place. They'll have 8 minutes between the changing of the guard and the arrival of the secretary. Good. Renner studied a screen showing Arlington's layout. Cooper will be seated in the VIP section. When the charges detonate, primary fragments will concentrate there. Is targeting Cooper necessary? Rivers asked, hesitation evident. He's retired, no longer involved. Renner turned sharply. Cooper knows too much about my past operations. Besides, he's a symbol of the old guard, the ones who compromised, who let politicians dictate how wars should be fought. His voice hardened. Everyone at those ceremonies represents a military that's become a puppet of weak civilian leadership. And afterward, Rivers pressed, nationwide panic, martial law declared. When the military leadership vacuum becomes apparent, certain generals sympathetic to our cause will step forward to restore order. Renner smiled thinly. A necessary reset for the Republic. As they turned to leave, Rivers paused. And what about Morgan? Her body still hasn't been recovered. A footnote, Renner dismissed. One dead seal won't matter after tomorrow. The door closed behind them, leaving Alex alone with cold rage and absolute clarity. This wasn't just terrorism. It was an attempted coup. And Rivers, his questions now suggested he might indeed be deep cover, playing a dangerous game where even his handlers might not know his true position. Alex waited 5 minutes to ensure they wouldn't return, then slipped out of the communications hub. Her next targets were the vehicle pool and armory. Without transportation and weapons, the compound's effectiveness would be crippled. At the vehicle pool, she worked methodically, using her knife to puncture fuel lines on 5 transport trucks, carefully arranging the damage to ensure fuel would leak slowly, becoming apparent only when vehicles were started. For the 3 remaining vehicles, she removed distributor caps and spark plugs, hiding them in different locations. The armory presented a more difficult challenge. 3 guards maintained watch over the reinforced building. Using the guard radio she'd acquired, Alex keyed the microphone twice without speaking, the universal signal for radio check. When one guard stepped away to adjust his equipment, she made her move. The first guard never saw her approach from behind. The second turned just as his colleague dropped, reaching for his weapon but too late to prevent Alex's attack. The third managed to fire a single shot that grazed her thigh before her borrowed Glock ended the threat. Inside the armory, Alex found enough weaponry to equip a small army. AR-15 rifles, tactical shotguns, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and most concerning, military-grade explosives, including C4 plastic explosive and remote detonators. Working quickly, she placed small incendiary devices throughout the armory, focusing on the explosives' storage. Unlike Hollywood depictions, explosives don't simply explode when burned, but the resulting fire would render them unusable and likely trigger a necessary evacuation of the compound. As she exited the armory, an alarm blared across the compound. Whether from discovery of the unconscious guards or some other security breach, her window of stealth had closed. Now speed and decisive action would determine success or failure. Alex activated the remote detonator for the communications hub. The resulting explosion sent a fireball into the night sky, immediately followed by secondary explosions as electronics and fuel sources ignited. Chaos erupted as militia members scrambled to respond, shouting orders that no longer reached their intended recipients. Taking advantage of the confusion, Alex made her way toward the command building where she had seen Renner and Rivers earlier. Halfway there, she encountered a four-man security team sweeping the area. The ensuing firefight was brief and brutal. Her first shot taking down the team leader, the remaining three falling in quick succession as she employed the combat shooting techniques that had earned her top marks at Quantico. The command building loomed ahead, its windows illuminated as shadows moved urgently inside. Alex approached the rear entrance, only to find it already open. Inside, the scene was unexpected. Rivers standing over an unconscious guard, weapon drawn. "Morgan?" he gasped, genuine shock evident. "You're supposed to be dead." Alex kept her weapon trained on him. Disappointed? No. Relieved. Rivers holstered his sidearm slowly. "I've been undercover with this group for 14 months. CIA operation, codename Patriot Shield." "Convenient explanation," Alex replied, not lowering her weapon. "Check my left ankle if you don't believe me. Subdermal implant, CIA identification code." Still covering him with the Glock, Alex knelt and examined his ankle, finding a small surgical scar consistent with intelligence community protocols. "Why didn't you extract me when I was compromised?" she demanded. "Couldn't risk it. Renner already suspected a mole. If I'd helped you, my cover would have been blown before I could stop the attacks." Rivers grimaced. "Hardest call I've ever made. Leaving you out there." "Where's Renner now?" "Command center, one level down. He's activating the remote team since our communications went down." Rivers checked his watch. "We have maybe 10 minutes before his fail-safe protocols kick in." "What fail-safe?" "If he doesn't make hourly check-ins with the field teams, they're instructed to execute immediately rather than waiting for Veterans Day." Alex processed this information quickly. "So we have minutes to stop nationwide attacks?" Rivers nodded grimly. "That's why I couldn't risk extraction or calling in a strike team. Too many moving pieces, too many potential casualties." "Then we end this now." Alex handed Rivers her spare magazine. "You take the guards, I'll handle Renner." They moved through the building efficiently, eliminating resistance with practiced precision. Reaching the stairs to the lower level, Rivers took point, neutralizing two guards before they could raise an alarm. The command center door was reinforced steel, designed to withstand breaching attempts. Rivers examined it quickly. Keypad entry, likely biometric backup. Alex pointed to the ventilation shaft above them. "There's always another way in." The shaft was narrow but navigable. Alex pulled herself up despite her injuries, the torn shoulder wound leaving a smear of blood on the metal. Following the shaft's path, she positioned herself above what appeared to be the main command room, where voices carried clearly through the vent. "Arlington team, confirm status," Renner's voice commanded. "In position," came the reply through a secure line. "Awaiting your order." "Execute immediately. All teams, execute now." Alex's heart froze. The attacks were happening now, not tomorrow. Without hesitation, she kicked through the vent, dropping directly into the command center, her borrowed Glock already firing. Her first shots disabled the communications equipment, severing Renner's connection to the field teams. As she rolled to cover, return fire from Renner's security detail forced her behind a metal cabinet. "Morgan!" Renner called out, recognition in his voice. "Cooper's protege. I should have known he'd send his best student." "Cooper didn't send me," Alex replied, ejecting her spent magazine and loading her last. "You did, when you decided to target American soldiers and their families." Renner laughed, the sound hollow in the reinforced room. "Such loyalty to a system that abandoned you. They left you for dead, Lieutenant Morgan, just like they left me for dead in Afghanistan." "Difference is," Alex called back, "I'm still serving my country." The exchange of gunfire resumed, Alex taking down two more security personnel before her ammunition ran out. In the momentary silence that followed, Renner emerged from cover, his own sidearm aimed steadily. "Your dedication is admirable but misplaced," he said. approaching cautiously. America needs warriors willing to make hard decisions, not political puppets following arbitrary rules of engagement. What America needs, Alex replied, is soldiers who remember their oath is to the Constitution, not to their own interpretation of patriotism. Renner was 10 feet away now, his weapon unwavering. A noble sentiment from someone about to die for the second time. As he tightened his finger on the trigger, Alex executed the move Cooper had taught her years ago, the ghost step, a lightning-fast diagonal movement combined with a specific hand strike targeting the brachial plexus. It was a technique Renner himself had developed during his special operations days, but with one critical modification Cooper had discovered. Renner's arm went numb instantly, the weapon clattering to the floor. Before he could recover, Alex struck again, targeting pressure points that caused immediate motor dysfunction without permanent damage. As Renner collapsed, Alex retrieved his fallen weapon. Cooper said to tell you the ghost step works better if you don't telegraph with your shoulder. The door burst open as Rivers entered. His own firefight in the hallway concluded. Communications are down throughout the compound. I've sent the abort codes to all field teams from Renner's own system. Arlington team confirms stand down. Outside, the sounds of combat intensified as the compound's remaining fighters rallied. Rivers checked the surveillance monitors. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they breach this position. Extraction? Alex checked Renner's secure phone, finding what she needed, the authentication codes for his private helicopter. Helipad on the north side. Renner's personal transport. Can you fly it? Another skill Cooper insisted on, Alex replied, securing the still conscious but immobilized Renner. As they prepared to move, Renner spoke, his voice strained but determined. You think this ends with me? There are others who see what I see. A nation that's lost its way, that needs warriors to guide it back to strength. Alex leaned close to him. What you never understood, Colonel, is that America's strength isn't in its warriors alone. It's in the principles those warriors defend, even when it's difficult, even when it's inconvenient. She straightened up. That's the difference between a soldier and a mercenary. The escape from the compound was a blur of tactical movement, covering fire and desperate sprinting. Rivers took a bullet in the leg but continued forward, helping Alex secure Renner in the helicopter as militia forces closed in from all sides. As the helicopter lifted off, automatic weapons fire peppered its armored underbelly. Alex piloted them away from the mountains, setting course for the nearest military installation, where secure communications could alert all potential targets nationwide. Below them, secondary explosions ripped through the compound as the armory finally ignited, ensuring nothing usable would remain. 2 weeks later, in a secure conference room deep within the Pentagon, Alex Morgan sat beside a recovering James Rivers as they concluded their debriefing before Joint Chiefs representatives and intelligence directors. Colonel William Cooper sat opposite them, his weathered face showing equal measures of pride and concern. Based on Lieutenant Morgan's intelligence and Captain Rivers' confirmation, we've identified and neutralized all remaining Patriots' vengeance cells, General Marshall stated, closing his folder. The Attorney General will announce indictments against 37 co-conspirators tomorrow. The CIA director leaned forward. What concerns us is the vulnerability this operation exposed. Renner maintained deep connections within military and intelligence communities for years without detection. His planning was meticulous, and but for the extraordinary actions of Lieutenant Morgan and Captain Rivers, would likely have succeeded. Cooper cleared his throat. Which brings us to the matter at hand. Lieutenant Morgan is officially listed as killed in action. Her death certificate was processed, next of kin notified, medals posthumously awarded. Alex sat perfectly still, the implications clear. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs spoke next. What Lieutenant Morgan accomplished, operating completely off the grid, presumed dead, with no support or oversight, represents both a tremendous success and a concerning precedent. Sir, Alex questioned. The question before us, the chairman continued, is whether to reinstate you officially with all the debriefings, public recognition, and media attention that would entail, or to maintain your current status. Cooper interjected. There's precedent, though not recent. During the Cold War, the CIA occasionally maintained operatives in ghost status, officially deceased but continuing to serve in deep cover roles where their presumed death provided tactical advantages. The room fell silent as the implications settled. Finally, the National Security Advisor spoke. Lieutenant Morgan, the choice is yours. Full reinstatement with appropriate recognition or continued service in a capacity that would remain highly classified. Alex thought of the 18 days observing the compound, the betrayal, the fight for survival, and the mission completed against impossible odds. She thought of Renner's words about warriors making hard choices, and her own response about remembering oaths. If my experience demonstrated anything, she said carefully, it's that there are threats requiring approaches outside conventional parameters. If maintaining my current status allows me to counter those threats more effectively, then my choice is clear. Cooper's eyes met hers across the table, pride evident despite his professional demeanor. 3 months later, in a nondescript facility in Virginia, whose existence appeared on no official records, Alex Morgan stood before the first class of what would become known in the most restricted circles as the Ghost Program. Beside her stood William Cooper, now serving as chief advisor to an initiative even the Joint Chiefs discussed only in secure rooms. The candidates before them, 8 men and 4 women, represented the finest special operations personnel from across military branches. Each had been selected for specific psychological profiles, tactical excellence, and an ability to operate independently under extreme conditions. Every person in this room has passed beyond conventional service parameters, Alex addressed them, her recovered wounds no longer visible, but permanently etched in her bearing. Each of you has been selected because you possess the rare capacity to function without the infrastructure most operators take for granted. Cooper stepped forward. In conventional warfare, death marks mission failure. In your new role, death, or rather, the appearance of death, marks mission commencement. Alex surveyed the faces before her, recognizing in each the same qualities Cooper had once seen in her. The official record will state you perished in training accidents, combat operations, or other circumstances. Your families will mourn. Your names will join memorial walls, and from that moment forward, you will operate in spaces where no official American presence can be acknowledged. A hand raised among the candidates. What's our jurisdiction? Rules of engagement? Your jurisdiction is wherever American interests are threatened by forces operating outside conventional boundaries, Cooper replied. Your rules of engagement are simple. Complete the mission by any means necessary, but remember the principles you've sworn to uphold. Alex added the final thought, the lesson that had carried her through the Sierra Nevada mountains and beyond. From this day forward, you'll exist in the space between life and death, between official policy and necessary action. Your greatest weapon won't be your training or your equipment, but the fact that dead operators are invisible, even to those who think they see everything. As the candidates dispersed to begin their specialized training, Cooper turned to Alex. Ready for this, Lieutenant? Sir, with respect, she replied with the hint of a smile. Lieutenant Morgan died in the mountains. I'm just a ghost now. Cooper nodded, understanding perfectly. Then let's go haunt some deserving targets. Beyond the facility's walls, the world continued unaware of the program taking shape within. A cadre of operatives who had transcended conventional existence, who had learned the most valuable lesson in modern warfare. Sometimes the most dangerous operative is the one already declared dead. For Alexandra Morgan, left for dead in enemy territory, it was just the beginning.